Now, it's going to be impossible for us to sum up that win over West Brom in just one episode of the podcast, but we are going to try our very best. Alfie, where do we start with trying to summarise Friday night? It was just immense on so many levels.
Yeah, I'll let Glen and Steve, I suppose, go into more of the detail. But just in terms of summing up the entire night as an evening, I think it was the best night I've ever had in football myself. The best night I've seen at St Mary's for certainly the time I've been covering the club, and people I've spoken to say it's the best at St Mary's since you moved there. Obviously, you've had huge games. You've had European games, cup semi-finals, that sort of thing. But the atmosphere before the game was absolutely fantastic. You have to credit all the supporters who turned up, the fireworks shops in Shirley and whatnot that were all sold out of smoke bombs, and the club as well for encouraging it and allowing it, and what an atmosphere! Thousands of fans outside. The smoke was completely, it was thick. The air was red. I couldn't breathe for a lot of it. I couldn't see the bus as it arrived, but it was there somewhere. And the players said that they could look outside and just in amongst the red and white, they saw family and things like that. But scarce views of that because it was absolute carnage. And then the players absolutely delivered on the pitch. A really tight first half. Not much in it. It was a good contest again, but then the second half they were just fantastic. Will Smallbone, an academy graduate, getting the goal was absolutely brilliant. But just a lot of shithousery all night, basically. Just think in terms of the advertising boardings. Matt Letiz at halftime winding up the away fans. You had Psycho Mark Dennis with the most rousing speech I've ever heard. I would, I think Glen said, I'd go to war for him at some point if he asked me to. I thought everything on the night was just brilliant, and Southampton were very much deserving of their place in the Wembley final next weekend.
I did a couple of radio shows with Mark Dennis back in the day, and he's like that all the time. I think if we can get him on the pitch at Wembley, then that's a huge advantage. It was quite an atmosphere, wasn't it, Glen? I mean, for me, it was better than some of those European nights.
Yeah, I think as a collective, or Southampton people, if you like, we're relatively quiet and reserved. It takes a lot to get us, collectively to be fired up like that. And it was absolutely brilliant. From I didn't get down in time to see the team arrive, but I was in the Chapel Arms along the road, and you could just tell everyone was up for it. And we were there with the West Brom bus went past, and that wasn't pretty. It wasn't quite Liverpool stoning the coach sort of bad, but there was it was all very lively, and yeah, and just that the whole atmosphere from the moment you went inside the ground, the songs were going. I'm looking at people that I haven't seen sing all year, and they're giving it loads. So it was tremendous from start to finish. Really, the entire day. The fans certainly did their bit. They were asked to do their bit. They certainly did their bit, and the players delivered, and the manager delivered, and it was just a brilliant day, really. It could have been very tricky. I think West Brom would have settled for penalties from the first minute last week. They didn't. I know we'll get into the game in a minute, but yeah, it could have been a very, very difficult assignment, and it could have got a bit nervy. But that goal at the start of the second half just totally released any sort of tension that we could have had. And West Brom had a sort of brief flurry after that for a few minutes. And once we survived that, and obviously the second goal went in, and then the game was completely dead. And, I've made a joke about them pulling a goal back and us thinking, we might get a draw now. We've thrown it away from here before. But no, there was absolutely no danger of that. It was a brilliant day, brilliant performance. And everybody stepped up who needed to step up. There wasn't, we'll talk about the game in a minute. It was a bit like the game against Leeds. It's last game of the regular season. Is that there wasn't a single player out there who you could look at and say didn't have, a decent or above average game. Everyone was tremendous, from the goalkeeper right through to Adam Armstrong. So. And obviously the fans were tremendous as well. So great stuff.
It's been, there's been a great atmosphere before, Steve, and it's not translated into the players and into the start. We've had a great atmosphere, and we started quite sluggishly, but they were up for this right from the start, weren't they? The tackles were flying in, and you knew that the intent was there.
Yeah, I think that's always the kind of concern with building things up in the way that we did this week ahead of the game, because so often everybody kind of gets themselves up for it in the stands, and then it's one of those, like, you quite often see it at away games where you see these groups of people who are sort of properly on it in the pubs and singing songs in the pub, and then as soon as you get in the ground, they're nowhere to be seen in terms of any voice. But like inside the ground, I mean, I got in about 20-25 minutes before kickoff, and it was already noisy. There was a lot of singing in the stands before, like during the warm-ups and everything, and obviously you had Mark Dennis doing his rabble rousing to an absolute T. And yeah, it was just one of those evenings where kind of everyone delivered on their part of the bargain. There was probably a 5-minute lull or so in the atmosphere, I think, probably just before half time, where I think everyone was just kind of having a bit of a calm down and getting their breath back a little bit, because I think everyone was just exhausted from it all. But then, yeah, as soon as the second half kicked off, we're on it again. And I mean, I think getting that goal so early in the second half, straight after what you would imagine Carlos Corberán would have probably had something very specific in mind for his team for the first 10-15 minutes. And within 4 minutes, we've blown it out of the water, because we've got that goal in front, and all of a sudden that game opens up completely, and it's basically them playing into our hands, really. I mean, as Glenn said, there was a couple of minutes of West Brom sort of waking up and thinking, oh, we've actually got to do something now.
Yeah.
But once we weathered that sort of mini storm, there was the one chance for Moet, I think, where he hit it straight at Harwood Bellis's head. And I think, I mean, if he misses his head, he scores. But other than that, we were largely untroubled. I thought we played it perfectly. As Glenn said, there wasn't a single player who you could make any case for saying they didn't do their part. I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, Smallbone is one of the standouts. Flynn Downs again was absolutely outstanding in the centre of midfield. Even Adam Armstrong, I think when I saw the lineup, I was a little bit concerned, because I thought, well, we haven't got a focal point up front. But actually, we effectively played without a striker, because I think Armstrong and Brooks kind of both still played that sort of wide role that they're best suited to, but tucked in sort of as and when the need arose. So it was an interesting selection. It's basically the third different formation we've used against West Brom. So we've obviously kept them guessing fairly significantly. And I mean, I think Daniel Farke, having watched the game, I don't think he'll necessarily know quite what we're going to do at Wembley on Sunday. So that bodes well for us as well, I think.
Let's talk about Che Adams, Alfie, because last week we were talking about how key he was potentially going to be, and we were, Russell Martin was obviously keeping his cards close to his chest. We didn't see any pictures of him training during the week, and I honestly thought he would be in that starting lineup at 7 o'clock, but it wasn't to be, and it sounds like he was quite a way off too.
Yeah, well, I think me and Adam Blackmore, we saw Che sort of moving around in his training gear at the training ground at the same time as the players had been training 2 days before. So we just assumed that he must have been involved with the group and was ready. Russell Martin said after the game that Che had offered to do 10 or 15 minutes, but he just felt it would be too much of a risk. But he did say categorically to me, and I've said to you before about Russell Martin's team inspection advice, and you know what, at this point in the season, let's not give anything away. Why not? But he said categorically that he will be involved in the final. So that's obviously another option for him, and it goes for the same for Ross Stewart as well, because I think a couple of us, when we saw that he wasn't warming up, I don't know if you noticed that, he came out, did a couple shuttle runs, and then went straight back in, both before the game and at half time. I was beginning to get a bit worried, and I think, I was wondering, is he just on the bench so that West Brom don't suspect anything, because they haven't got anyone to bring onto the bench for him anyway, apart from obviously Tyler Diblin. But he reckons that he will be okay for the final as well. But you just never know at the moment, and they're obviously two, like Steve said, they're the only two they've got that can play that way, really. And I think Russell Martin obviously watched Sekou Mara's performance last weekend, and he decided to go with something else, a different shape entirely, because he felt he didn't have that second sort of striker option to play in that 3-5-2. So I'm sure that's part of it. But yeah, the message is that Che Adams will be available, but I obviously won't be surprised. I think you have to pen them both down as doubts at this point.
The other changes, Glenn, obviously it was Brooks coming in, possibly his best game. I thought he was kind of at the races, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. Yeah, I thought he had a tremendous game. It was interesting how he set up, because I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but we started off with 3 at the back, Ryan Fraser left wing back. Within about a minute, we changed to a back 4 with Kyle Walker-Peters on the left, Stevens on the right, and then we changed back again. So it was obviously something that they decided to do to try and confuse Corberan a little bit. And the game settled down, and Brooks was kind of almost playing. It was weird. I mean, it looked to me like on one side of the pitch we were almost playing like we do with a back 4. Kyle Walker-Peters sort of tucked in and Brooks as the right winger. And on the left-hand side, we were playing almost Fraser as a wing-back. And the only thing I can think of there is that the West Brom wingers, Fellows wants to go outside. So consequently, players, if it's 5 at the back and get your fullback out there. Whereas Johnston on the right always wants to cut in. So, Johnston on the left always wants to cut in. So maybe Walker-Peters was not quite as ambitious going forward as like Fraser was on the other side. So it seemed a little bit lopsided, but if that was deliberate, then it certainly worked. Well, it worked if it wasn't deliberate, but yeah, that seemed to be the way we were going, and it was good. But I was very impressed with David Brooks. I think you've got to remember with him how much football he's missed. And so he's not going to come in and be brilliant every game, even though he's he's clearly a Premier League level footballer in terms of ability. And he has had a few ropey games, but his body is getting used to playing regular football again at a decent level. So I think obviously because we're chasing the big prize at the end of the season, you kind of want him to be brilliant every game, and you probably judge him a little bit harsher. I think there's got to be a bit of a caveat with him, with what he's gone through and his sort of journey back to playing regular football again. But I thought he was tremendous on Friday. He's got to learn to fall down a bit less spectacularly than he did in the first half, because it was a foul. He's pulled him back, but because he's kind of launched himself forward like that. I mean, it's a dive basically. I think that's the reason it doesn't get given. And maybe the reason why the second one didn't get given, which was absolutely cast iron penalty. I mean, how on earth that doesn't get given when he's just absolutely been wiped out is beyond me. But yeah, I thought David Brooks had a good game. I thought Fraser had a good game at left wing back. I think people forget that he played that position for Bournemouth for a season. So he's quite adept. You would worry about him under a high ball, the big diagonal to the other side. But I
he did win a couple of headers on those on Friday, though.
Yeah, I think what I like about Ryan Fraser is that even though he is only 5 foot, whatever he is, very small, he still goes for it. He doesn't just accept he's going to get beaten in the air. He goes for it, and that's half the battle. Sometimes you got to let the winger or whoever know that you're not having a free ride, even if I am a lot shorter than you. So that's I thought he had a good game, and that to me will be one of the real interesting selection dilemmas on next week. It'd be him or Ryan Manning, and obviously a lot will depend on what formation we decide to go with. But having said that, I thought Ryan Manning did well when he came on. He got stuck in more than he normally does. He got closer to the winger, and he got to the pace of the game straight away as well. So again, it goes back to what was said earlier on. There wasn't a single player who let anyone down. Everyone sort of like did their role. Sam Adozie was decent when he came on as well when Brooks got tired. So everything that we tried worked on Friday, and that's why we got the result we did.
We're going to have quite a list for Player of the Week when we do that in just a moment. Steve, just talk us through the goals. I mean, I think Will Smallbone's goal was probably just at the perfect time, really, wasn't it? Because that was a cagey first half, and we'd done a lot of things right. We just needed to get that goal, and then once it came, the place just came alive.
Yeah, and it was. I think we've been fairly critical of our sort of ability to finish chances that are presented our way over the course of the season. And West Brom basically passed us the ball on the halfway line with only 3 defenders back, and Brooks and Smallbone basically made exactly the right runs in at exactly the right times into exactly the right places. And great finish from Smallbone on the angle. Slight deflection, I think, from where I was. It looked like it took a slight flick off someone before going in off the post. But hit it hard enough that that takes it past the keeper rather than past the post. So yeah, if you don't buy a ticket, you're never going to win the lottery. So yeah, cracking finish,
Nice
great.
Nice to see him actually hit it, wasn't it? Because a couple of times I've been critical that he's got into the area on the edge of the box and then tried to pass it into the net.
Yeah,
and sometimes you've got to put your foot through it, and he did that.
Yeah, I would say he does. Go on, Steve.
He does like this sort of arriving late thing that obviously Man City have kind of trademarked that goal in the last 7 or 8 years or so, where someone gets the byline and he's the guy that runs on to tap it in from 6 yards or whatever, like he did at Elland Road the other week. But yeah, I mean him being able to put a bit of power behind a shot like that is, yeah, I mean, it's something we've not seen a huge amount of to date. So that's good to see, obviously.
That's his 7th goal in the league season, which is actually quite a good contribution for Swallow, and maybe gone under the radar a little bit. But like you said, he has had a lot of chances, and in his team they have so many attacks. But yeah, I said at the start of the season that I think he could definitely be key in the right position. I think it's just so obvious that when he plays with the right protection behind him, he's just so much better. He's so influential, and it's nice to have an academy lad actually in the team, isn't it? So I think everyone's right behind him.
And Russell Martin, clearly a fan as well, Alfie. He had some nice words to say this week.
Yeah, but he's a Russell Martin player, isn't he? He's tidy on the ball. He likes to make runs into the box. He's like you say, he's completely reliable. And I think we've spoken over the course of the season. He likes him so much that he trusts him in the number 6 role as well. And obviously they have varying results with that. But there's a reason why he likes him and why he's willing to do that, because he really believes in him as a player. So yeah, I think this midfield of Downs, Aribo, and Smallbone, because I think even Aribo, but for the one where Brooks was scissored in the box, it's a great pick out from Aribo. To be fair, he gets the ball in a bit of space. There's a nice channel for him to play into, and then obviously David Brooks is scissored from behind by Kipra. So I think that midfield three is just untouchable for me. It's the perfect combination, and without Stuart Armstrong, they've found a way to make up for it, I suppose.
Yeah, that was always the key, and one of the questions we had many weeks in a row, wasn't it? What's the key, and how's it going to work without Stuart Armstrong? Glenn, I assume you weren't on the pitch at the end, were you?
No, I wasn't.
The pitch invasion. It would have been nice to have kind of finished the evening on a bit of a high and actually seen the players and their families come out, but it just kind of killed the atmosphere dead, didn't it? It was like they would just turn the music off, turn the screens off. Right, we're going home. Yeah,
I thought it was a little bit unnecessary because. I mean, maybe I'm an old fart, but I thought it was a little bit unnecessary because we haven't won anything yet. Took the moment away from the players and the manager, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who did the business on the pitch. So I think it was slightly selfish. That said, if you went on the pitch to celebrate, I can kind of accept it. But if you went on to goad Albion fans and players and be a dick, I hope you get banned. I really do. And I don't know, there was quite a lot of anger about the sort of like lack of stewarding or whatever. But I think the whole pitch invasion thing took the club by surprise a little bit, because they probably didn't think it was a possibility, because there was no sort of like announcement beforehand. In the event of us winning, please stay in your seats. There was nothing put up on. We've got these massive, great jumbo screens. They could have flashed a message up briefly. Sort of 10 seconds from the end or whatever, just to say stay in your seats and the players will come out, that sort of thing. And that, just a small thing like that might have stopped it. I don't know, maybe not, but yeah. So I think the club were blindsided a little bit, but at the end of the day, they were, we were trying to fire up people to bring the noise and be passionate and stuff like that. And I think it just spilled over. So I thought it was a bit unnecessary, but I think it'll all be completely forgotten if we win next week.
I felt a bit sorry for the DJ, because I got the impression that he had his post-win playlist ready to go. I think London Calling was banging out, and you think, all right, what's next? Oh, no, we're just going to kill the tunes and everyone's got to go home. Let's do Player of the Week. Steve, so many standout performances. Do you want to try and narrow it down to one?
Flynn Downs for me. Not a particularly sort of outlandish claim, I don't think, but yeah, his presence in that team. He just makes everything tick, and yeah, against a side who have ultimately been the fifth best team in this division this season. He dominated that midfield, and especially second half, just completely ran it. The way his run for the second goal, which I mean, it's not really the thing he's known for. He doesn't tend to do it that much, but when he does, it tends to be effective. And yeah, that was the goal that effectively killed the game. So yeah, great stuff from him. More of the same Sunday, please.
It was Adam Armstrong, I think, who got player of the match in the stadium. Glen, who would be your standout performer?
Flynn Downs.
It's going to be a one-horse race.
These man of the match awards, they might as well call him person who scored the most goals in the game. It's just, yeah. I mean, Adam Armstrong, yes, he scored two. You know, stuck the penalty away well, scored a great goal. He was quite quiet other than that. I thought Flynn Downs was excellent, just all the way through the game. Outside of Flynn Downs, I think you got to look at Taylor Harwood-Bellis. Virtually every attack that came from the back was started with him sort of like passing the ball between the lines. He was the one that gave the ball to Downs. He created the chance for Brooks in the first half when he hit the side netting, that one.
Couple for Fraser as well, where his first touch didn't quite match.
Yeah, so I thought Harwood-Bellis was excellent. And you got to look at the goalkeeper again. I think Alex McCarthy had another good game. I don't know if that snapshot that Furlong had was going over. It would have been close. Probably would have hit the bar and done something. But that was a hell of a reaction save. So I think Alex McCarthy did really well again. So, no, I mean I thought Flynn Downs was head and shoulders our best player. But you could look at anyone, Smallbone, Aribo. They all did well. But I guess if I got to pick one other player, it'd be Harwood-Bellis.
Did you do the scores for the paper this week, Alfie? Or was that George?
I didn't this week. No, that was George again. But I can only presume that Flynn Downs and I'm going to go for Will Smallbone would have been the highest rated. So I don't know how many you've named. About 10 players between us now. We can only have 4 on the poll. But yeah, Will Smallbone for me.
Okay, right. We'll get that online and we'll see who comes out on top.